So welcome, Wagner.
Thank you.
We are happy to have you here, Contica, today, like among us all. And we are really excited about what we're going to talk about next. But before, let's just maybe break it down a bit and talk about your role at Microsoft.
Sure. So I'm Wagner Silveira. I'm originally from Brazil, living in New Zealand since 2002, and working at Microsoft as a Logic Apps PM. So the area that I focus on Microsoft, the areas that I champion is community outreach. So thank you guys and the guys in the audience, and developer experience, right? Which, funnily enough, is the topic of what we're going to be talking today. So when you're talking about developer experience, you're talking about usually the thinking as integration developers. What are the tools? What are the processes? What are the things that we can do to accelerate our experience, to improve our experience when we're implementing solutions using Logic Apps?
It's a really tough focus because it's quite hard to get the feedback and get the developer satisfied.
But I've been a developer before, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, you gave me that, so now what about this?
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, one is never a shortage of work, right? And also is a really good place to match with the other side, because the community is a community of developers. So, and I was an MVP before, right? Before joining Microsoft. So the whole idea of having a community of developers that are super passionate about the technology, and because of that, is very demanding and wanted a very high quality job. And this is a good problem to have.
Yes, it is, and it's always fun to get the challenge because you think that you reached a milestone, and then suddenly, oh no, we didn't really think about that, or we didn't really cover that. And it's like all of us, we face those challenges, but there's also people behind the products that we use every day, which is like people like you and the rest of the Logic Apps team.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I was the one using the product before.
Yeah.
Now I have to be the one making sure that the people using the product is engaged and is happy with what we're doing, right? So I can definitely feel the pain and empathize with the people when they're talking about this feature should not be working like this. But then again, now put my product PM hat and say, okay, you're thinking about this use case, but we also have all those other use cases that because of that, we have to be that flexible. So it's always a mix of flexibility versus the simplicity, because the easiest the things are for you to use, the better, but also taking into consideration the things that makes enterprise tick, right?
Yes.
Security as a default principle, trying to make sure that whatever you're doing, we're supporting the application lifecycle management in general, all the way from development to deployment and monitoring later.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I like how you have been approaching that. We just came from Stockholm Nordic Integration Summit. It was an amazing couple of days event there where we actually got a lot of information. It's quite hard to actually process now. I need a week to start process this. But I liked your approach about talking about the product as it's like this is the rest of the world, or like the developers are the customers, and you listen to them and how you package it in different stages.
Yeah. I just put it on the things like those are things that we as developers do, and I think audience and online and here can connect to some of those jobs to be done, right? How we call. And there's a lot of things like you can go to onboarding, then you have to develop, but after that you needed to think about packaging, deployment, and how we're going to be maintaining that and pushing new versions all the time.
Yeah, that's good. But then let's just go about the recent development, and because there is something specifically that I would like to talk about, which is like the codeful approach that it came out recently. You are focusing more on that.
Now, right now is we're not focusing on codeful. Right now, we started working on that, right? But then the AI wave came.
Yes, of course.
And with that, like we needed to quickly shift to make sure that we pick up pace on the AI side. So we working on we have a private preview out on Codeful, but we're only going to be picking up pace on Codeful again, probably beginning of next year, just after. I say after Ignite, but after Ignite is Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So it's really the like.
Yeah, it's gonna take it up. Yeah,
we're going to be picking up
talk
pace
about
on that
2026 maybe.
one again. Yeah.
But like what I'm asking about is not Codeful, but why Codeful approach? Why did you?
Well, is
start with that?
the approach we didn't start. Codeful became kind of a natural evolution for some of the things that we're doing. So if you're thinking about how Logic Apps standard has been set up today, we started with now is a way for you to treat your consumption Logic Apps as applications. So you can develop that group of workflows that before you needed to put like artificial boundaries around, you put in the same resource group. We try to tie that up, saying that only they call it each other. Now we have like an actual application that can do that, right? Okay, I have a Logic Apps application, and I can developer, deploy, and manage that together. But we as product group is never going to give you all the connectors that might exist for use cases, because, for example, you might have internal systems or bespoke systems that you created and you wanted to connect.
Yeah.
Because of that, we came with the kind of next evolution that was custom code. So when you're working with the custom code project, is a way for you to create extensibility from Logic Apps and put those things together.
But that will take us to there is a debate that some people have that's saying that we are pro code and there is like the low code and
exactly. We get to that point and say, here is the solution. In theory, you have like everything that you need. Okay, you go to some companies and people would say, well, I really need integration. I love Logic Apps. I love the idea of connectors, the extensibility, etc. But I have a bench of C# developers. That's what I have been done historically, and now I needed to do integration.
Yeah.
Right. So how can I convince hardcore C# developer that says, if I don't touch in the code, I don't have control, to start using integration? Yeah. That's where we can say, okay, we can come with something that is still Logic Apps, it still uses the simplicity of Logic Apps from the point of view of having the
connectors,
having the orchestrator engine, all of that is set up for you, right? But you implement your workflows using code. And to be honest, the preference, if it was just preference, that is more like a philosophical debate. But how many of you got to the point where my orchestration, my business process is inherently complex, and then show that as a visual tree, starts to get into the way to actually implement that well, or start that in the way to actually get it performance, right?
Yes.
This is the other, I think this is the biggest aspect of Codeful. It is getting a business process that is super complex, that is hard to take the performance out of that if you're just working with very specific items.
Yeah.
Now you bring into the things that code does best, which is like simplifying those processes, and you can not rewrite, but write that business process in a way that you decompose a little bit more, but then you really have control of how you're going to implement the business process.
Yeah, like I would say, like I see it in another. You mentioned the philosophical approach to that, but I see it also in a different way, that the Codeful finally just like put a name on the way that how things should be, because we have the portal, which should be only for managing, and then you have it's like it's world class front end for your solutions. So you have your solutions and then you deploy them, and then that's for the management and the life cycle of this product that you deliver. And like I think that the portal is for production.
And the portal has two aspects, right? One is discover when you still don't know, and you're not going to set up a whole environment to write not necessarily a hello world, but like a small POC that you needed to prototype really fast and show things to customers. So you get the buy-in to then do the full project. So really good to do fast prototyping because as soon as you create it, you don't have to create, deploy, package, deploy. Everything that is really good about ALM gets in the way of fast prototyping. So you have a place for doing development in Portal when you're doing POCs, very quick POCs. Or the other end to spectrum, the Portal is your management plane. Is where you can apply role-based access, restrict who can access and what, where you're going to have your information and all of that, right? What the Portal is not really good at is developing like the whole solution, because then you actually develop in production, right?
But developing the whole solution like workspace is a quite difficult thing to work with locally.
Developing in the full solution, that's where we invested in the Logic Apps extension for VS Code, right? Okay. So we've been working on the VS Code extension for the Logic Apps application. So you have a first-class experience to implement workflows locally in an isolated place where you can create, debug, test, version, package to get ready to deploy to other environments. So a lot of the things that we have here on the screen, which is like probably the normal ALM that we get, the normal DevOps that we get, right? You create, you package, you deploy, you monitor, you improve, and you keep on the cycle. Are things that we should be doing. Good part of that, I think that we should be doing with the support of the VS Code extension. Then you mentioned workspaces. Yes. Right? How many people here is been using Logic Apps for more than 3-4 years with Logic Apps standard, or uses like the very early stages of the extension? So we've been talking about that, and early on, the way that you created the Logic Apps was you create a project stem, right? It would work fine, but then when we started to come and say what other things people need, I might need custom code, right? How am I going to make sure that I manage those things together? Otherwise, would be here is my screen for or my window for Logic App. Here is my window for my custom code. I'll build it there. I go to the other one. It's like it's almost swiveling chairs. It's swiveling the windows, right? We needed something as close as solution for the people that uses Visual Studio or other IDEs. We needed a solution container, and the solution container for VS Code is workspaces. So since custom code, you started to see the introduction of workspaces, right? What we've been doing since then is making sure that workspace then becomes the first-class experience for creating Logic Apps, because you never know how your project is going to grow. You cannot decide at the beginning that I needed to add this in a custom code project, and I might I might be the one doing deployment, so I might also needed to add deployment scripts here. And of course, I needed to do unit testing. I didn't know how to do unit tests properly with Logic Apps until we get the unit test framework. But now I wanted to attach my solution for unit tests in that place. So the idea of the workspaces is getting those things in place together, so we can do this we can do that easily. Yes, that's I was about to say the questions. Yeah,
we have a question. Let's see.
Is it coming up here, or?
Of course.
Oh, we have the best media guy here, Robin. Where is Okay. Do we need to stand to read that? I think Wagner can read.
So is there any chance in VS Code to use sign-in account for Azure extension in Logic Apps to for connection with managed identity like Azure Functions in Visual Studio? That's a really good question because this is actively in the development, right? So I've been discussing this before, and is a very common request, right? I think you guys might be used to the concept of Azure default credentials. That is pretty much like a way to select which was the credentials that you want to make sure that you have the same kind of authorization mechanism or authentication mechanism in local or in Azure. But if you don't find one type of credential, you go until you end up getting the default user context credential, right? We're working on that today, and it's something that is probably going to be light up by Ignite or around that time. But we're working that in 2 steps, right? So just to be really clear, we have 2 places where those managed identities are used inside Logic Apps. The first place is when you're using Azure connectors, those connectors that are actually similar to the ones in consumption. Those connections are actually resources in Windows. Oh, sorry, in Azure. So for the Logic Apps to talk to that, it needs to authenticate the Logic Apps application to talk to that. It needs to authenticate, otherwise what would happen? I have a connection there, any Logic Apps will use it, right? So that free for all cannot exist in an environment like Azure. So if you are a Logic Apps developer using the VS Code extension, when you create in Azure connections, you see those pesky connection strings every time that you created the Azure connection, right? That it says that connection string is valid for 7 days. And then after that, it goes and renews it for you again. We are implementing default credentials as a pattern, but applying that to that one first, because that one is easy. We apply, you get to all the Azure connectors in one go, right? And then we get the pattern for Azure credentials in place. After this, we're going to start applying that to using managed identity authentication for service providers and for Azure connectors. So all of that is coming. The first part is getting rid of that Azure connections, although it's just a token that only is working for that. Like it still feels bad to see a connection string on local settings, right? It never feels right to see that kind of stuff. So that is coming.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that I encourage more of those questions. It reminds me of what was Vic saying the other days. Like I myself worked as an MVP, having this role of just annoying you guys all the time with those kind of questions and trying to be on. But
pestering the product group from to make things better is the role of the community.
Yes, exactly. It's not only for the MVPs. That's just everyone is allowed to annoy them.
Yeah. Well, just be nice. Just be nice, but that's basically true.
Yeah. The more feedback, the more the product become better. Yeah.
And of course, we don't have all the resources in terms of the engineers. We have to prioritize. We have to go with the market trends. But when we started to see patterns, when we start to see trends, and the more that you talk about the same thing, the more it bubbles up and it becomes important.
So talking about market trends, I had one question. I got this question a couple of times actually. Now in Nordic Integration Summit and like from some clients about what is the developer experience when it comes to the Logic App hybrid deployment.
Okay. So everyone is talking about, like everyone that's talking about Logic Apps hybrid, they say, okay, it's different. It's like it's a different beast. Logic Apps hybrid is just a deployment option, right? Which is really good, and that's one of the tenets or the pillars that we have on the development. You shouldn't need to know when we start developing your Logic Apps where you're going to deploy that, right? That's the reason why you deploy develop locally in an isolated place. You make sure that your logic is good, as everything is there. Then once you have this ready, you decide where you're going to deploy. You're going to be deploying that on Azure. Good. You're going to deploy that on a Kubernetes cluster in Azure. Good. You're going to deploy that on premises through Azure Arc. Good. It's just different deployment allocations. And if you look at the way that deployment works, literally from the deployment of the Logic Apps application is just the cluster, and the thing is almost like a region and subscription kind of concept,
Yeah.
right? Like similar to what you would have with if I might select in New Zealand North, right? Shout out to the region that was just highlight, or I deploy to container environment 1, 2, 3, which is so those things becomes almost like Arc environment 1, 2, 3. So that becomes like just environment regions where you're going to deploy.
Yeah.
Then you select where you're going to deploy. That is your Kubernetes cluster.
Exactly. You have your vessel and you ship it wherever you need it.
Yeah. Well, you have your. I wouldn't even go with that. With that analogy, because that would be the assuming everything containers, right? You have your deployment path, you have your box,
Yeah, exactly.
and you deploy it everywhere you want it. It might be fast courier to Azure, or it can be on a chip to the on-prem, the other side of the world.
Yeah, or on a server on office here. We had that, so it can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, but I want to push a little bit and try to be greedy and maybe annoy a little bit about how
he's really living in MVP spirit.
So can we have a sneak peek about how the developer experience would look like when they want to create a new Logic app now?
Okay.
Is that gonna change, or will it look exactly like it is now? How this workspace
He's coming
like?
he's coming with insider knowledge because he was on Nordic Summit, right? When we're discussing about workspaces, we were talking about how some of the changes that we are making are all based on customer feedback. Excuse me. And not yet. I'm going to share in a minute. And what happened was that we had a lot of feedback from customers that they like. Oh, there we go. Stay with me. Stay with me.
I think we're okay.
Is that my mouth is playing up?
Is it? It's not.
Run?
No, it's not running.
One. Back one. See if I can play that now.
Yes.
Yeah,
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way that we created workspaces using the VS Code setup was really annoying. I think it's a good word to describe it. This was created when this process was really simple. Give me the Logic Apps name. Give me the workflow. Not this one, the original one. Give me the name of the workflow and the type. Done. I have a Logic Apps project, right? Then we started to cram things inside. Now give me the workspace name, the location, the custom code project, the function name. I started just talking, and all of that on those little boxes on the top.
Yes, on the top there, and you have to write, and you need to remember also what you've been writing before, and like you did something wrong.
I don't know, you guys. I think I didn't do that because I got so used to it that I end up like always creating on the same folder and stuff like that. Easy. But how many people come back to me and say, hey, I had to delete my project twice because I didn't know exactly where I was going to be creating the workspace. And then I got lost.
Yeah.
Is a very valid point, right? So we moved we moved into a more wizard-like process that is an early sneak peek on active development stuff. That is going to make it easier for you. You can see like all the projects, how it's going to look like, and you have all the information. You can see exactly how it's going to be created in your folder before you say okay. Then after that, it goes really quick to you to get ready and run.
And what we saw now was like actually in VS Code. It's
Yeah,
not
that
on
is
the
VS
phone.
Code. You can see on the on the
You-
side, right?
Yeah.
And all of that is VS Code. We're just going to be moving to that more visual scenario because that process will move from something that was really simple to something that are complex. So we're improving the user experience, but we're not just using changing the front end. What we're doing with that is also making sure that since we're working on that process, we capture all that information in a way that is extensible later. So if we have it to add other types of projects, this information goes goes on the same format on that packaging for us as the product engineering. So we don't get like those early teething problems where I created a custom code in the beginning, and then I have like something that was a little bit different if I created just a logic apps or logic apps with the rules engine, right? So this gave us the opportunity to standardize that process. And that format is going to be used into everything that is relatively complex. So the same kind of wizard can be used to create projects, right? So now I have to add a project to existing workspace. We're going to provide a similar process. I have to create my deployment process where I needed to select a whole lot of things. We're going to do that, right? But things that are simple, like creating a new function or creating a new logic apps, that the only thing you needed to do is a name and a thing, we're going to continue to VS Code. So we use the best of our resources to give to make impact where it's needed most.
Yeah, so for you out there who is working on maybe some stuff to make that easier, just wait a bit. Hopefully we will see that soon.
Yeah, so
this is not
this is
public yet.
probably no, this is not public yet.
Mm.
You don't even have private previews for that. I don't think for that kind of stuff you're not going to be hitting a private preview. Doesn't really going to help us answer design questions.
Yeah.
Right, but this is probably coming after Ignite. We're going to be super busy with on Ignite with a lot of AI components, right? Including some components for the extension. So we just don't want it to put like too many eggs in the same basket.
That's cool. And talking about AI, you could just maybe add a chatbot there that just create all those things for you. And
Well, that I'll let you guys do.
yeah. Great.
No, but funnily enough, that's not sure about the chatbot, but that if you wanted to automate that, it was like a typical RPA process, right?
Yeah. But talking about AI, yeah, we have another question.
Good.
There we go. I
It's
think
not
it
a
was
question, but a statement.
a statement.
Yeah. So that with that, excuse me. So the statement here is generally we may require other files in the main project. As an example, when we create integrations, we put everything in one repo. So deployment files and maybe an Azure functions plus a logic app with a custom code, which means that it would be convenient to add logic apps to an empty workspace. Now, I agree, right? But what we're trying to do here is balancing boundaries in a way. But that's the reason why we implemented like on the new wizard, it gives you visibility where it's going to be created. So it's still going to create the logic app. You can put the logic app anywhere in your monorepo now, but we're going to create in the workspace for that, right? But one of the improvements that we did is allowing to add a logic app project if you have an open a workspace, right? There's a really good case for me to test, but I think with that, like creating a project, that might improve because we are now forcing, if you don't have a workspace, you needed to create a logic apps workspace. But if you have a workspace already created, it would allow you to add the project. I needed to test if it needs to be a workspace with a logic app, right? But I'll come back with that. So you might have some of that in place, but also take in consideration that with the improvements that you're doing, you're going to have a lot more control. You don't have to guess where the logic apps is going to be created, and with that, you might be able to create that in the right place on your monorepo. But what we're trying to avoid is bringing that whole monorepo, right, in the workspace for you to just focus on the logic apps, because that is going to load a lot more extensions, is going to make the process a bit more harder for you to manage, and potentially conflicts, because logic apps and Azure functions, they are really close related. Having too many of those things together might confuse the extensions. So we needed to put more checks and balances and make it slower on the process.
And always come with the feedback. But before we move on, because I realize that I'm gonna move to AI now, and if I start to talk about AI, I will never stop. There is another question.
An extension to the question.
Why is Workspace not similar to a classic project solution file? That is the difference between VS Code and Visual Studio, right? So it's way above my pay grade. Visual Studio VS Code team.
Yeah, but do we have any more questions regarding the experience, developer experience, or any question about what we have been discussing? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I saw that we have .NET 8 now for custom code. Is it GA or is it previous then?
Now the .NET 8 is being GA since Integrate, since June. So it is GA. And while on the .NET 8 discussion, there is two features that came with the GA that is worth mentioning. The first one is dependency injection. So you can actually implement dependency injection similar to what we'll be doing with functions inside that custom code, which makes life much easier for you to bring your own components and reuse that. And the other one is when you first launched .NET 8 in preview, we had a conflict between what packages you could bring. If Logic Apps had a package that wanted to bring a later version, Logic Apps was winning, right? Sorry, but that's what was happening. We, as part of the GA, we changed how we implementing that. So we moved in the .NET 8 code to its own worker, and with that, there is only two packages that we're not allowed to bring, and if we bring, we use our own. Is, funnily enough, the dependency injection package, right, and the logging package. So those are the only two. But to be honest, the changes between those should be so small that you wouldn't need that. Everything else is available.
One question, sorry. Two more. It's okay. Talking about logging, when we log from the custom code, from the function, where the logs will go, will it go to?
You on custom code, if you're using the iLogger, it probably goes to the same app insights instance, because when you deploy that, you deploy just the allowance at the application that has the app insights configuration. So it has support for the app insights.
And the second question, talking about dependency injection, which is very nice that you finally get it out there. But I remember from the early function when it was in built-in model, I remember it's called. And then we had to configure our own program CS and then build everything up for dependency injection to be supported. Is it the same scenario here, or is it much simpler to do now?
We have a startup. We have a startup method where you set up your dependency injection, and you can put that together with your main project.
But it's not a startup class or a file.
No, it is a startup method, right? So that behind the scenes, you needed to create startup config, if I'm not wrong. I just needed to look at the code and we can check that later. But the process is you define your dependencies interfaces in one class that you added to the function, right, to the project. And on the main project where you have your functions, you add that startup class. Sorry, the startup configuration method. I'll show you the code later. There are some examples.
I can wait till then.
And it's just because it's going to take some time to find it on my 300 set of tests here. But we discussed that on Integrate, and I show some samples. And we have on the GA announcement on Tech Community, we have some of those samples there. So it's easy to find.
One statement and one question.
Oh, okay.
It was previously, so
Is it a statement in a question or it's?
No, yeah. So
Yeah.
for .NET custom code, it doesn't support several parameters of different times. Actually, this is not. Just let me rephrase. I think this is how that class was implemented, right? It is expecting a request object, and then because of that, you needed to put like one object. So I have that problem before. We're looking to see if it's if there is ways to improve on that one. But at this stage, I think it's still stable enough for you to use it, right? So without having to set up those ones. The way that I usually do this is I set up that thing as an J object, and then I cast it to an internal class at the beginning of the method execution. So I still have access to all the parameters, but from a seeded class instead of like all different types of requests, which is similar to what we'll be doing when you creating the things. You get the HTTP request, and then from there you cast it into something else, and then after this you work it, right? It's because basically is an internal HTTP request.
Yeah, it's like
Is
structure.
an actual function.
There was. Oh.
can you read it there?
I can try. Well, there is something that's been missing here. So
Yeah, I'll fix it.
yeah, let me start. I'll get the first part. For Logic Apps pipelines, I can generate pipelines for Azure DevOps in VS Code. When that pipeline is set up and I later figure out that I need a new API connection, I then develop this locally. Would I need to recreate? Okay, would I need to recreate my DevOps pipeline? I think is the gist of the question.
Yeah, yeah. Then
Let's
wait.
see here.
No. Something like key access and also.
Would I need to recreate my DevOps pipeline, or is that API connection possible to use locally in VS Code while testing with something like key access and also automatically afterwards in Azure after the pipeline deploy? Okay, so what we're trying to find here, if I'm not wrong, is I can either, when I'm using Azure Connections, I can either create connections that are specific to product, right? And that I do like my full IAC, which is what when you generate the deployment scripts gives to you. It gives you like it creates all the other templates for each one of the connections. It picks up the things, puts in the right place. So try to make that process easier for you. If I understood the question correctly, then correct me if I'm wrong on the online. Is can I create the connections? Then bring it to Logic Apps, right? Use it locally to develop my stuff. Then deploy the code and reuse those connections. Yes, you can, right? Because the connections are the beauty of the Logic Apps connections management. Although it can be fussy it was a lot fussy to manage between environments before. With parameterization, make it easier. Is is literally just references. So you can use the same reference locally or in prod, or you can use different references between the different places. Remember again that when you're talking about that key, it's just the key between the application and the local, right? And I'll just get that and selfishly talk about something that we just developed recently. If you are doing your whole infrastructure outside of that CI/CD to deploy the logic app, take a look at the deployment center improvements that we did lately. So what we did with deployment center, like deployment center is usually a direct association between one branch on a source control and one application, right? With that, we didn't have like a good support for logic apps for this, exactly because we have all those other transfers between connections needs to be converted from raw key locally to manage identity in the application. We needed to bring the package. You needed to bring some of the reference to the right places. So what we did with the deployment center is creating a deployment script like a PS5 that goes to your deployment folder, and the deployment center knows exactly where to find. So it's creating a custom deployment.
So use deployment center.
I think when you have those cases, it's a very specific scenario. One branch matches one logic app, and you only transferring updating code. I have new logic apps, I have new connections, I have new parameters, and I needed to refresh. But I'm not dealing with the infrastructure as part of that deployment. I'm not redeploying everything. Deploying across environments, if you needed IAC, then you should still be using the full deployment pipeline, right? Does it make sense? I don't know for the people in online, but it's at least here for the talking heads here.
Yeah. I guess so. Don't have more questions about that or follow-ups, or maybe they will come later. You never know. Yeah. But yeah, I see that.
No, it's the
we have more.
Same one. No, it's
We
the
have
same one.
But also, if you show them this, like the picture with the packaging and the like where you actually develop your
Back to that one.
yeah, the one after. It's not the one with the text, the one that you actually. Yeah, that number
I
4.
was talking about that one.
Yeah, exactly, because there is many different approaches that you have there.
I'll get there.
Yeah, this one.
So let me share my screen one more time.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to because we had questions about all of those actually. That's why I want to show this specifically. But that's
all that a lot of the improvements that we did on from last year to here.
Yeah, exactly. This is how the roadmap looks like, and the focus from the last year until now, which is actually address some of the.
To be honest,
Yeah.
On packaging, when you say auto generation of deployment scripts, that includes both IAC with templates and deployment center. So when you go through that process, you select which type of deployment you wanted to generate the script for. It puts in the same place, so you always reuse that deployment folder for those things.
Yes, I see that we are closing out on time now, and I have to talk about Agent Loop.
You have to talk about AI, right?
Yeah, I have. That's exactly. I have to talk about AI because I know it's like even we're talking about developer experience and all this, but you yourself, like you are focusing on developer experience. But I see that this AI and the workflows, the Agent Loop, how this is actually is changing the developer experience, even though it's not changing much.
Especially when you're talking about integration and workflows, right? You naturally is going to be moving into agentic workflows or processes that are taking advantage of other agents. You have that is a really good way to extend your integration on places where you would naturally be able to implement using deterministic. So that's why we thought from the product team from the beginning that Agent Loop was a really good match to continue that, right? And expand use cases that we could do with the non-logic apps. But back to the story in the beginning, right? You shouldn't be developing in the portal. You should be doing prototyping. You should be doing managing, but deploying, creating production stuff in the portal is not something that you should be doing in the portal. That's why we also making sure that all the things that we do in the portal today, because it's like evolving fast, and that is like the fast place to get all of that, is going to be coming to VS Code by Ignite. And you're already able to do a lot of the things that you do in the portal in VS Code. If you're not working with, like everyone talks about chat agents, right? So agents with chat. But I think especially for our audience, more powerful than that is autonomous agents that are that is embedded on your integration, is responding to events, and then adding the non-deterministic steps to your deterministic workflow, and then giving a result. That experience for for autonomous agents is fully light up already in VS Code, because behind the scenes there is no difference between, well, rephrasing that, the way that you represent this, or the way that you run, is a stateful workflow in a way, right? It's like you start with an event, or with an event from somewhere, HTTP request an event, then it runs, gets to the completion. The difference is now you have a new type of action. In this case, that is the agent loop. Chat is different because it's actually is more of something that is waiting for input, and in the chat you only have the agent. There's a chat and an agent, and everything goes inside that. But autonomous no. So if you're implementing autonomous agents, you can deploy implement autonomous agents on VS Code today as is, and it's going to give you the same rich experience behind the scenes, like when you're analyzing your agent results, you can see which tools was light up, what is going to be the steps. Chat is we're going to be lighting up by the Ignite, right?
Great. Yeah.
So around that time frame, and the difference, like the reason why we don't have that right now is because in the portal you have runtime and design running always at the same time. When you move into local, you needed to make some adjustments to what naturally is the workflow locally, right? Is you implement something, then when you're ready to test, you run and open up. So you try to make that process a little bit more seamless, but the thing is, we're going to be moving some of the interfaces from what you have in the designer to other places in the VS Code to adjust to that experience that is offline by default instead of online by default.
Yeah, but it's still, I want to take that back an notch and talk about like why, because I can see it. Does anyone have any questions regarding this? Yeah.
I think you kind of answered the question, but should we, if we look at our way of work, should we start looking at the portal is just for POCs basically? We should always go VSP first. And
I might be biased, right? But as a developer, I would be working on the IDE by default and implementing all of that, because there is a couple of things that is super important there from both application lifecycle, but also from a general management, right? Why, if you're developing all of that locally until you're ready to deploy, how much resource you actually putting on Azure? So you're not adding cost. You don't not adding surface area, right? So Kay would be like super happy with that. So less surface area for you to have to manage, less resources for you to
To be
move
sure, yeah.
while you're doing like the heavy lifting of getting the things ready to run. Plus, there are some of the items that are going to be super important for you as a developer that is only light up on VS Code, and I think that's the case for the near future, right? Things like unit testing that we didn't touch here, but I hope that everyone is starting to use or at least investigate. So the things like be able to debug your custom code together with your application, those things are super important to do as developers, and you're only going to be finding that inside an IDE like VS Code.
But it doesn't mean also that you need to lock yourself on VS Code. There's always still, you have to be aware of how it look like. What is the end user experience when it goes to the portal? This has to always be in mind, because
Yeah.
it's not a debate, or it's not like this way
Yeah.
or the other way.
It's not either or, right? It's like both working together. And that's the reason why we did the things like a create from package, like a different way to create workspace. If for some reason you needed to do part of that initial real development in the portal, we wanted to make sure that you'll be able to reuse that when you move into VS Code, right? So we created an easy way to go capture that package that you created in the portal and initiate a workspace out of that. So this is something that is available today and is a super streamlined process.
Any more questions regarding the subject?
I have a small follow-up.
Several.
I have a follow-up question too.
Follow-up, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
so that's integrate. We saw the new logic app standard template generation where you can go into the portal, create a new template, get a workflow, and then select from a template. Is that coming to local?
I don't have ETAs, but it is on the roadmap to bring to VS Code for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More questions?
Take a follow-up.
Yes. We can follow on this the whole thing.
Looking, so okay, so we are looking at then VS Code. You start in VS Code. You create your project or environment.
Yeah.
If you have a team with various skills, let's say some of them are pro code, some of them are low code resources. Do you see future where it will be seamless to work with the different? Let's say if you have a codeful project, but you want to work in the designer. Would that be possible in the future, so you can seamlessly switch between how
Our approach for Codeful is Codeful workflows and codeless workflows can coexist on the same application, but the same workflow cannot be converted back and forth. You're going to give you the opportunity to say, this workflow is starting to become too complex, convert it to code, and then from there you started to adjust. The reason for that is thinking about the complex scenarios, right? The reason why we moved to code was because you wanted to make changes that you're not able to do in codeless, in the visual, to make it run faster, to make it easier to maintain, etc. How can I, as the tooling, convert that back? I'll not be able to do that, right? Because now you make changes that I'm not aware of. The other thing that is going to be probably quite a common pattern in Codeful is I'm going to have now snippets of actions or snippets of code. We encapsulate a group of 3 or 4 things in a method or a class of common things like the exception handling or I don't know, logging or things like that you created. And you created that as a get package and you just start to set that inside of the workflow. Because it's code, you can do anything, right? The only thing that we're going to be doing is you needed an orchestration function. When you needed to call our actions, you needed to call it using our prescribed SDK. but everything else is under your control. How are you going to convert that to the visual? So that's why we decided the approach is you can do visual. If you wanted, we're going to give you the opportunity to convert.
Mm.
Then you continue on code. But if you have 3 or 4 logic apps that are super simple and I can create it in the, and I see advantage of creating that in the Visual Designer, I can run with those and have 3 or 4 that are super complex running together as codeful.
I think yeah, good there.
I have one question. When you say that you, like, when you promote Codeful over like Portal First, how crucial would you say that unit testing is to have in place?
Codeful, moving into the VS Code, right? So bringing the project from the VS Code to the portal. I think like
So like if you, let's say we're working with Portal First approach right now, then we want to like switch to Code First. How crucial would you say that unit testing is to have in place when you start working like Code First?
I think when you're starting to work in even if it's the visual, doesn't matter if it's visual, if it's on in code, unit test is crucial to have. There is a couple of reasons for that, right? The first one is the hardest part to do testing today with logic apps, doesn't matter what type of testing that we're doing, is you need to repeat a lot of tasks, start the host, call something, even if you have your HTTP, your REST client files, run this, go to overview, find what happened, and see if it breaks or not, right? Is a lot of manual process. If you have like one workflow that might have like 10 different possible different scenarios, that takes a toll.
And you need to involve a lot of people, a lot of resources. That takes a lot of time also from.
Yeah, even if it's just under you, right? But
Yeah.
the other side, that I think that's what you mentioning, Ahmed, is I need the right data to be in the right place for me to test, because it's different types of scenarios. And that right data in the right place is actually all different other systems that I might not even have. I have the account to connect to that system, but me as a user doesn't have access to that to go and create data there. This is the beauty that of the any kind of unit test framework with mocking is you running that fully disconnected for external systems.
Yeah.
So you can repeat, you can like create different scenarios, and you don't deal with the external systems, which is super powerful when you actually needed to add coverage to test.
Yeah, great. I still didn't get an answer of my question I had. If anyone else had follow-up question to that?
Do your follow-up question?
No, I know I will take us to back question. I have about AI, of course. I want to finish with AI, but that's what I do.
Go for it.
Because we had a conversation earlier today before the call here now, and we were talking about the AI and the integration and developers and how they should think. And you are a great example of that, because you are really coming from a really deep integration experience, and also you are like fully pro code person that's like focusing mainly on creating those solutions from BizTalk to even like with other platforms, maybe. And now we are moving. We are creating a developer experience for all of this, but we have to deal. We mentioned that we're going to be including AI, and the agent will be on VS Code, but some people out there still think that this is something that I don't really need to deal with. And I want you to tell me from your perspective, how do you see that AI fits in the integration from developer perspective?
Especially from an integration perspective,
Yes.
AI gives you the chance to deal with like all those corner cases that is that goes to the too hard basket, right?
Yeah.
How many projects that you have that say, hey, the process is this, okay, implemented. But I have this one case that this customer here send that by email. Email, yes, is a non-format, yes, I can add it. okay, but man, I really, is this all the customers, they also by email, but it's this other format sometimes, and sometimes it's this format.
Yeah.
Like, how complex can get your initial surface to get to like those things here, you know, gets to a point where either you're never going to get to that famous canonical model for them to complete the rest of your integration, or you started to say, hey, but we needed to go live with that, right? So forget about this. Now we do that on the next iteration. And then you end up with like 10 cases of that. And then people started, and then find out that there's like this one customer is the one that handles like 30% of the thing. So all of a sudden you fully diluted your integration solution.
Yes, exactly.
That's where AI can come to actually add to those things, like to move from getting all those things that if you're thinking, this is the definition of non-deterministic in this case. Sometimes I get that, sometimes I get the other, but I don't know. I don't have rules to find out when or how. And sometimes you get like a data that is not structured as well. AI is really good, like the LLMs are really good at that. And if you can still define the process to get to the place, that's when the agent is super good to this, right?
Yeah,
so that's the
sure.
place where autonomous agents working together with your traditional or enhancing your traditional integration solution in this case is important. For the people that are saying, maybe that's not for me, start to think about those cases and find out how many you have, or select maybe one to test.
How many people can you help actually by just starting to think about those things, making their life easy, actually creating a value closer to your customer, end user? Yeah. There.
One follow-up question. From integrator and perspective, and the one who is creating integration, don't you want to have a standard input, or do you want to be okay with everything that comes to you and then you handle it?
You want, not always you can, right? And that's the problem. Those cases when you can, you go to you go to a manual process or to an external process to like how many spreadsheets you have. Not you guys, but like how many business has spreadsheets to say, just to do, I received this, it is like a text, then I go swivel chair, add the things on the spreadsheet. So now I have a standard input, and that's what I send to the thing, right? And that's where like those manual processes, those things that are super unstructured or really hard to determine, those are the things where AI can help. And we're not saying that that the process is going to take over the integration. It can be like for the old stoppers here, think like having a agent receive pipeline.
Yeah.
Think about how easy it would be for us if we'd have like a agentic receive pipeline back in the day. One pipeline that doesn't matter what they receive, the agent starts to understand it and to create the canonical, the standard input that you want. Then my rest of the things is super deterministic. But sometimes that process is like, I still have the thing here, but the things can happen in the middle, can happen on the way out. So find the scenarios where we started to take advantage of the integration, starting to dilute the value of integration because all those manual processes started to get in the way and break down the process, and try to see if we can apply that. Plus the beauty of the agent is it cannot need to be like just an agent. It can be agent with human in the loop. You can still have a process where the human supervises that or do the final thing, but takes the whole manual process. You don't need a human to go and create a CSV from a structure. We can still send it to him to say, hey, did they really capture the data correctly or not? Until it gets to the point where you trust the process and don't need the human in the loop anymore.
Yeah, and hopefully we will reach this one day. And yeah, I think we can.
And then
We need-
Skynet comes and we're going to, and we're going to say hi to our agent
Exactly.
overlords.
Yeah. And I think we can talk. We need to dedicate some time to that, and we like focus more into this.
Mm-hmm.
Talk more about
Definitely.
AI and have more questions, but like we really way out of time now. So
Yeah.
But I just one of my own takeaways now when you were describing the last sentence, you looked at me while saying that old BizTalkers, like that was pointing
No, I
at me,
was,
but like okay,
I was looking
I
at
did-
my reflection.
yeah,
I was looking at my reflection on the thing there, man. I'm an old
So-
person.
So thank you for joining us today. And like I didn't even scratch the surface of my questions yet, and I think we still need some more time with you, and hopefully we can do that during the time where you're here with us today.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for staying for the whole hour during your lunch break. So, and thanks for the people that joined during lunch to ask
Yes.
the questions.
And thank you, Robin, for managing this
Yeah,
with us, and that's an amazing job. Thank you.
super professional multi-camera.
Yes.